Now, how many times, and I just have to ask this question, how many times do they have to have a contract signing, and at the end of that, somebody beats somebody up?
Yeah, just once I'd like for them to change that up and actually just sign a contract. Everybody
It'd
shake
be,
hands and go have a Coke.
yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to see this. Uh, David Lawson asked, since Ronnie was from Cleveland, did he know any of the other wrestlers from Cleveland growing up? Don Carson? Yes, he did know Don Carson. Ken Hawk? Yes, he did know Ken Hawk. J.C. Dykes, know him very well. J.C. Dykes is the person who got him started in pro wrestling. He was supposed to be he was putting up the ring, and J.C. Dykes was refereeing. And then one day, a wrestler didn't show up. They needed a referee. They threw Dad in there, and that was 1962. He's 14 years old. He actually worked in the wrestling business till 1996. So what is that? About 32 years. He was in professional wrestling. Larry Cheatham, yes, knew Larry Cheatham. Frank Hester, I believe he did know Frank Hester. Was he not one of the Infernos? Maybe. Love the shows. By the way, I'm from Cleveland, also Cleveland, Tennessee, a great place. Thank you very much, David Lawson. Bob says no psychology, and I'm pretty sure he could be talking about this show, but I believe he's actually talking about the WWE. But no, there is no psychology whatsoever. Bubba Griffith asked, did you spend any time in the Gulf Coast? Yes, we were at the Gulf Coast. My dad actually in 1970, he went to the Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. I'm guessing he's asking about the Gulf Coast. I'm guessing he's asking about the wrestling company and not just did we go there as in a thing. But in 1970, he went there, and he was the first time Dad ever was in the office. The Fields put him in the office. He didn't stay there long. He left maybe about 6 months into it. And he went back to work for Nick Goulas. From there, he went to work for Jim Crockett, and not Jim Crockett Jr., Jim Crockett Sr. Jim Crockett Jr., what can you say about Jim Crockett Jr.? I don't know that he had the abilities that his father had. Jim Crockett Sr. was a smart man and knew professional wrestling, and I think Jim Crockett wanted to be everybody's friend, and Jim Crockett Sr. didn't care if you were his friend. He cared if you drew him money. I mean, that's the. Have you watched the Dark Side of the Ring, David Schultz story?
I did.
That is a tremendous story. David Schultz was a tremendous wrestler, and if anybody knows about Herb Welch, I mean, what did Vince McMahon believe was going to happen? I mean, you put David Schultz out there, and you're going to use the word fake. He had to know he was going to slap.
I think he knew what was going to happen. I just don't think he was ready for the fallout from it, and finally got to the point where he had to put the blame on somebody and, just try to put it on Dr. D, which is a shame because, man, what a talent he was. I mean, he was Stone Cold Steve Austin before there was a Stone Cold Steve Austin. And that's legit.
Yes, he was. And, it's funny because he was so good at that. There's a portion of that where he says that the police came to Vince McMahon after he was telling his kids to get up and telling his wife to shut up, that they really believed that he was this guy. And that was what David Schultz was. David Schultz was if you didn't see him and Dennis Condrey as a tag team, great tag team. They were probably one of the best tag teams in wrestling. Now I know that Jim Cornette will tell you that they only drew money. Dennis Condrey ever drew money when he was with them. But that is not a true statement. Dennis Condrey drew money with Dennis Condrey, David Schultz, Dennis Condrey and Phil Hickerson, Dennis Condrey, Norville Austin, and Randy Rose. Dennis Condrey drew money way before Jim Cornette was even thought about in the wrestling business. So it wasn't just Jim Cornette and the Midnight Express, which, don't get me wrong, they drew a lot of money, but Dennis Condrey drew a lot of money prior to that. Yeah. Let's see. Dr. D was a true heel. Yes, he was. There's no doubt. Jim Crockett Jr. made a small fortune after he inherited a large fortune. Bob, I believe you're telling the truth there.
That is, that's the old joke in the business is how do you become, as a promoter, how do you make $1 million? you start with 2 million.
Jim Crockett Jr. I will tell you, I'll have to. We sat down with him. But let me bring my brother in because I want to tell this story about Jim Crockett Jr. I'm gonna bring him in right now because I want to. Let's see. Let's put it like this. Maybe this will look better.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean.
I was napping. Sorry.
I didn't mean to wake you up.
Jim Crockett Jr. and I fell asleep.
All right, let me turn this off because we don't want that to be over top of your head. But I want to tell you a little bit about
dark. I need to get some lights in this house.
I'm going to tell you a little story about Jim Crockett Jr. He comes to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and he's going to run wrestling in Chattanooga. And Jack, you might remember this, but he was going to come to Chattanooga, and he told us, he gave us all these big things that he was going to do. Now, unfortunately, Jimmy Crockett Jr. ended up with about 10 bookers that night. I think he told 10 different people that they were going to book their matches that night. And I mean, it was a horrible week. Well, we didn't even go because once we found out that Michael Hayes was going to take care of his stuff, and I can't remember all the other people that were supposed to be on. But we could tell you, we sat with Jim Crockett and we were supposed to go for that night. And tell the story, Rodney, when we were sitting in the office talking to him about the show, his thought processing as far as what he thought.
His main thing was to get the attention of WCW. His main thing was, if you don't think WCW is we're going to get their attention, they're going to come down on us, you're out of your mind. And I said, I can tell you this, WCW and TBS could care less about you and could care less about what you do. They are not going to be paying attention to Chattanooga, Tennessee. They're not going to be paying attention to anything we're doing because they're too busy trying to solve their own problems. And you are not one of them. And I tried to explain that to him, but he got all, no. And this was all his little, his scheme to try to get back at WCW. And instead of trying to build his own, and then at that point, we just pulled all of our support. Because we're interested in building a brand new organization. We weren't interested in going to work for WCW or trying to do something with him. We were trying to build a regional wrestling organization, something that brought wrestling on a regular basis to different markets, not to go back to WCW. We no way, shape, or form do we going to try to emulate that model. We wanted to do what we grew up with. That means regular scheduling wrestling events in possibly 6 to 12 markets. Not this kind of nonsense he tried to come up with that. And I tried to explain. You got to the point where every wrestling fan is smart enough to the fact that nothing happens unless there's a TV camera there. There's not going to be a title change. There's not going to anything happen because that's the way you've educated the fans. Tell me the last time they've sent the camera out to a house show and something happened. And I can tell you, he couldn't put one thing. He said, that didn't matter. And I said, of course it does. People want to be involved with the big historical events. They don't want to be sitting there just watching the show. If they was going to do that, they could just sit home at TV. But yeah, we wasn't on the same page at all. Did I get too fired up there? I need to calm down. I don't want to get sorry about that.
We may have to send Rodney to some type of anger management school before he comes off the program.
This is what we're going to talk about right here. You people want to watch good wrestling, this is it. We're doing it. Me and Bill Dundee, we're laying it all out. And I went through and watched 6 hours of Mid-South in 1984. Best wrestling ever.
David Lawson said, Tommy Rich in a shoot interview having heat with Jim Crockett. Have you heard that, Jack?
No, I didn't hear anything about that.
I do know he thought people didn't pay him right. He would complain about Bill Watts, say Bill Watts. He went all the way to the Superdome. There's 20,000 people there and he got $150. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know why he want to lie about that, but he said Jim Crockett did the same thing to him. I don't know if that was true. I've heard
that as well because of Starrcade. Kevin Sullivan and all them went over and done Starrcade. I think it was the second one, and they didn't get what they deserved either.
Larry Brock.
How you doing, Larry?
I'm telling you, buddy. We saw old Larry put some. As they say, as the guy in Knoxville used to say, the whoop your head hold on some people.
Yeah, but the whoop your head hold on the fans.
Yeah, he put some. The fans gave Larry Brock a bad time.
He just spot them coming from way back.
You know, some great times in Dothan, Alabama. Anybody, that was the hotbed of professional wrestling. It was Dothan. They ain't no doubt about that.